thanks Val and Susan and everyone for inviting me to do this. I am indeed deeply honoured. I have been saying for some years I want to get to principals and school leaders, because one of the things that I have learnt from our research when Canberra, as they invariably do, what is it that's going to make a difference? What is it? And of course they want a silver bullet. They want an answer. And of course there is no silver bullet. But if, as they insist, my reply is always leadership, leadership, leadership. And I mean it absolutely. I've seen so many schools falter, not because of the lack of willingness or keenness of, say, teachers involved, but because the leadership hasn't filtered right throughout the school. I have seen schools absolutely thrive because not only is there a sort of lead teacher that's taking responsibility, they're leading others, and then people that they report to lead them, and it's part of their strategic plan, it's part of teachers' performance development and so on. So it's a whole school approach. So if you leave with one message, it's my gratefulness for being here, because I truly believe that it's school leaders and the people that, the leadership team in a school, that truly do bring about change. And having the opportunity to talk to you, as you call them, the big six, and I call them the big ideas in number, is a great honour. I'm going to hit you with quite a lot of stuff tonight. This is an introductory session, and we'll have opportunities to calm down a little bit and smell the roses when we look at each of the big ideas in turn. But I thought I'd just take the opportunity, I don't often get the chance, to put this in a context of both nationally and also in terms of where we're at as a country, but also in terms of the research that we've been doing. Most of you would be aware of the Australian National Curriculum and its view about numeracy and the recent developments in terms of the numeracy continuum, encompassing the knowledge, skills, behaviour, dispositions students need to engage in a wide range of situations, about understanding the role of mathematics in the world, which is becoming increasingly more dominant, but also subtle. You know, in a period of fake news, we are beset by claims, many of which are not true and are not supported by evidence, and yet we have students that are not, equipped with the literacy and numeracy skills to unpack and to question and reflect on those claims. We're not doing a service to our community. However, I've just got a situation analysis. Success in school mathematics, we've now known as a result of some recent research, is a strong predictor of STEM engagement. So not surprisingly, people aren't going to be engaged in STEM pursuits if they don't have a strong maths background. It's not sufficient just to be gung-ho at science. If you're going to be really effective in that field, in engineering or in technology, you also need to have mathematics. Unfortunately, we have a situation at the moment where students are opting out of the more advanced maths courses in the senior years of schooling. And the rate is actually increasing, and it's alarming, the number of students that are dropping out of Year 12 maths. In particular, the proportion of students taking specialist maths is declining, as well as, of course, opting out as a correlate of STEM courses. And what we found from our work consistently since 1999 is that there is an abiding and very hard nut to crack, and that is that there's a 7 to 8 year range in mathematics ability or performance in every year level, grade 5 through 9, and it starts in reception. Kids come to school with very different backgrounds and experience, might be 2 to 3 years apart if you're measuring in curriculum terms, but by the time they get to grade 4 and 5, it's already out to 5 and 6 years. And teachers have a very challenging task. I was pleased to be working with a cluster of schools today in which there are quite a lot of multi-age grades, and I commended them on that, because actually you're going to have the range anyway. You might as well have them across a span of age groups, because there are students in those Year 6, 7 classes who actually need what students in grade 3, 4, and indeed what some need what's in grade 1 and 2. So I'm going to argue that these effects, the declining rates of participation in STEM and in more advanced mathematics, at a time when there's a growing need for STEM participation. I'm sure most of you have read and heard the statistics that something like 44% of Australian jobs are at risk of digital disruption. They're not going to exist in the next 10 years. What is really sad and what is often not reported with that statistic is that in fact, currently in terms of these emerging new jobs, there's a very, very disparate gender disproportion. 90% of people participating in those emerging positions at the moment are male. For the first time in PISA, the Program of International Student Assessment, we're finding gender differences. We hadn't seen it in 2003, 2015, but in 2012 we are now seeing males outperforming females. And as I said, so a lot of these pointers are pointing to a quite concerning future for Australia being able to maintain its competitive advantages and to participate in the knowledge economy. But I'm going to argue that all those things are inevitable symptoms. They're inevitable symptoms of us not doing what we need to do in school. And what do we know? We know that up to 55% of Year 8 students do not have access to multiplicative thinking. I'm going to background some of this a little bit later. And as a result experience considerable difficulty with fractions, decimals, ratio, rate, percent, and all forms of proportional reasoning. Now, you need those things to be able to participate successfully in school mathematics, but more than that, you need those things to be able to unpack claims made in the media and by politicians about everyday events and circumstances. Many Year 4 to 9 students are unable to apply what they know to solve unfamiliar situations, explain their thinking, or communicate mathematically. They may well get good marks on tests of processes, and they're flying under the radar. You give them problems for which they have to find explanations or unfamiliar tasks that they're not quite sure how to attack. They just sit back, I can't do that. And of course, we as teachers are very obliging. We've been trained well by our students. We can't really cope with, I can't do that. So what do? We launch in and we help. And of course, the students have learned that if they just wait long enough, we'll do it for them or we'll help them. And of course, the result of that is we're over-scaffolding. We're not sitting back and actually insisting that they perhaps work with someone else, they take some risks, and that's what's going to be rewarded in this situation. Our most recent research has contributed to 2 of these claims. Actually, it's echoed all of them. Previously, in the basis of our earlier research, we would claim up to 30% of students in Year 8 were not multiplicative. For the last 4 years, with federal government funding, we've been working in 32 secondary schools nationally, and I have to say 7, you're the largest participating state, 7 in South Australia, but the federal government required we worked in very low socioeconomic school areas. And I have to say that across the country, that figure of Year 8 has expanded up to 55%. There are schools where every student in Year 8 is pre-multiplicative. The other one I wanted to contribute to is this, where our more recent research is looking at developing learning progressions for algebraic, statistical and spatial reasoning. And what we're finding there is that a very significant number of students, particularly in these schools, experience difficulty with tasks requiring that sort of reasoning. Some skills, but they're not proceeding to the sort of problem solving and the reasoning and the sophisticated communication that's needed. We need to do better. It's ironic, when I did prepare this, it was prior to the immediate releases about NAPLAN, but they're not inconsistent. Of course, the current problem is a different one altogether about online results. But NAPLAN results have not changed in decades. Now, what do we expect? Do we expect them to keep on improving indefinitely? No, but we do certainly expect that those that are struggling to lift the tail, and we need to be doing more there. There's been no improvement in maths and reading among students in a decade, and the results of disadvantaged students have declined sharply. And children from poor families, regional and rural areas, and those with learning difficulties are struggling the most, and that's certainly what we're finding in our current research. It's untenable. You can't assign, approximately 40 to 50% of the population to an inadequate education and then expect them to make progress.